Welcome and thank you for standing by. Currently, all participants are in our listen-only mode. Today's webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be posted publicly. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. Now I'd like to turn the call over to your host for today, Kim Brown.
Thank you, Lisa. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on what are public use microdata areas, otherwise known as PUMAs, understanding when to use this geography. My name is Kim Brown, and I'm a training specialist here at the Census Bureau. I want to thank you for joining us today for the Exploring the Diversity of Census Bureau Data webinar series. This new series was created by the Census Academy team here at the Census Bureau and is meant to assist our novice and intermediate data users. These webinars are a great opportunity for you to learn from our experts about how to access the Census Bureau data, tools, and resources. If you wish to follow along, take a moment now to open an additional browser. You can register for any of the webinars by visiting census.gov/academy. Before I introduce today's speaker, let's go over a few important housekeeping rules. As mentioned earlier, this webinar is being recorded. For your convenience, it will be uploaded to our Census Academy site with all supplemental materials relating to the webinar within 30 business days. We welcome written questions during the webinar. Please submit your written questions using the QA panel, which is at the bottom or center of the right side of your WebEx screen. Please take a moment to locate that now. Once you found the QA panel, make sure you choose All Panelists from the drop-down menu. This will ensure we see your question. Also, we ask that you do not include any personal or identifiable information with your questions. We suggest that you keep the chat panel open, as we will provide key links and other resources throughout the webinar. Keep in mind, you won't be able to respond to the chat. That is for us to send our links and other resources related to the presentation. My colleagues David and Kira will be monitoring the QA panel. As time allows, we will answer your questions directly through the QA panel, or we will share your question with the presenter to respond to during the webinar. If we do not get to all questions with a response during the webinar, we will post the questions and responses with the webinar materials on the census.gov/academy site within 30 business days. As you know, we're in a virtual environment and sometimes technical difficulties might occur. If you have issues, try a different browser such as Chrome, or consider logging out and coming back into the session. If you are having audio issues, try selecting the computer audio or calling into the webinar via phone. Now I'd like to introduce our speakers, Jolie Golden and Sarah Davis. Thanks again for being here today. Jolie, you may begin.
Thank you so much, Kim. Hi, everyone, and good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Today, we're going to give an overview of what public use microdata areas are, and we'll demo how and when they can be useful in this geography that can help you to access American Community Survey data, hopefully in new and different ways. My name is Jolie Golden. I'm a data dissemination specialist who serves New York City. I work in all 5 boroughs, and I help the public to access, understand, and extract a treasure trove of census data using data tools available on census.gov. Back in 2020, I served for 2.5 years as a partnership specialist when we helped count everyone once, only once, and in the right place during the decennial census. Our special guest today is Sarah Davis, who is the Chief Demographer with the State Data Center at the New York State Department of Labor. The State Data Center program is a network of data professionals in each state who are available to help the public to access and understand Census Bureau data. We will share our contact information at the end of this presentation, so please stay with us. And now we'll move to an outline of what we're going to cover today. I want you to notice this very nice map, which shows all of the pumas within the continental United States. We'll look at a scenario about pulling local labor market data using 2 live demonstrations. One using data.census.gov, which some of you may be familiar with, and the other, the second one, will leverage our microdata access tool, also known as MDAT. You'll have a chance first to learn from Sarah about what pumas are, how they are developed, when they can be useful, and to see just what data are available by Puma. We encourage you to follow along during the walkthrough, and for those who may have joined a little later, this presentation will be posted on the Census Academy's website within the next 30 days. So one of the common threads through this presentation will be, and demonstration, will be looking at our scenario. So here we have Jose, and he works for a company called MedX that's based in New York State. They're looking to build a new facility, and they're going to need to recruit workers. So the 2 different live demos that we're going to do later will show us how to find employees with experience in manufacturing in Pumas in New York State using data.census.gov. And we'll also look at how to help him locate individuals or the general population that might be right to serve in that customer service representative position. And he's looking for them to speak both English and/or Spanish within the age breakdown of 18, we're going to do 18 to 49. So that's Jose. And now I'm going to transition over to Sarah, who's going to tell us more information about the American Community Survey and help us learn about public use microdata areas.
Thank you, Jolie. So today we will use the American Community Survey, or the ACS for short, as the source for finding answers to our questions and our scenarios later on in the session. Instead of counting the entire population once a decade, like the decennial census does, the ACS surveys a sample of the population every year to create statistics on the nation, states, and communities at varying geographic levels, including public use microdata areas, or PUMAs, which are our focus for today. ACS data are collected continuously throughout the year, including during the decennial process, to produce annual social, economic, housing, and demographic estimates. So this slide shows some of the many topics that are available from the American Community Survey, and that survey is randomly sent to 3.5 million households annually. You can find data on all of these topics and many more using data.census.gov. The topics language and industry and occupation are highlighted on the chart, are what we'll search for a bit later on in our scenarios. And you'll see that data.census.gov makes it easy to find data searching by year, geography, topic, and survey. So we will look at the overarching data profile table, DP03, which shares economic characteristics, including industry and occupation. And later on, we'll also customize some data on language. So before we talk about PUMAs, it's important to understand ACS period estimates and their availability so that we can see how PUMAs would be helpful for us. The ACS collects data over a period of time, a year or 5 years. So it provides period estimates as opposed to the decennial census, which reflects a point in time as of April 1st. 1-year estimates combine data collected over a 12-month period, and these are available for geographic areas with a population of 65,000 or greater. 5-year estimates combine data collected over a 60-month period, and these are available for all geographic areas. So what are PUMAs? We'll start out with this discussion of what pumas are. It's not a standard geography like counties, cities, or towns, and some users may not be as familiar with what pumas are and how they're defined. So what you're looking at here is a diagram of the hierarchy of census geography for ACS data. So this shows in particular some of the geographies for which ACS data are available and the relationship between those geographies. So lower geographic areas fit neatly within the larger areas directly connected with lines. So as you'll see here, the public use microdata areas, or PUMAs, nest neatly within state boundaries. So they do not cross state boundaries. However, they may cross county boundaries as they do not nest neatly within counties, which we'll discuss more on the next slide. So PUMAs do not overlap, and they divide states into areas with at least 100,000 people. PUMAs within a state will provide complete coverage of the state. And PUMAs are a statistical geography, so they don't necessarily follow legal boundaries such as full county or city lines. They're developed to help with research and planning needs. And PUMAs are constructed using counties and census tracts as building blocks. And this geography is a standard selectable geography in data.census.gov for ACS tables. So this slide illustrates that PUMAs can be combinations of counties. PUMAs can be large in physical size, and they can be made up of combinations of multiple counties. If you take a look at the map on the right, where the pink line outlines the PUMA boundary, you'll see that in southeast Utah and Uinta Basin Region, PUMA is comprised of 8 counties. Those counties include Wasatch, Duchesne, Daggett, Uinta, Carbon, Emery, Grand, and San Juan counties. So this is an example of an area where the population is more spread out, and it shows that PUMAs may be very large in physical size with combinations of individual counties. And this is necessary to ensure that there are 100,000 people in the PUMA. On the flip side, this slide shows California. So on the left, it's the state of California and Los Angeles County in orange down here on the bottom. And in areas where there's a more concentrated population, such as large cities like Los Angeles, PUMAs can subdivide a single county and be made up of groups of census tracts. So in the map on the right, the zoomed in image of Los Angeles County, that shows Los Angeles County split into PUMAs. And because of the city's large population, it was possible to subdivide Los Angeles County into 71 PUMAs, with each of those PUMAs outlined in pink. So, how are PUMAs created? After each decennial census, there's a PUMA delineation program. So lines can be modified to be sure that areas still meet the minimum criteria of 100,000 people that we mentioned earlier. And any PUMAs that grew to over 200,000 in population can be divided if possible, and any other changes over the decade are examined. So state data centers are given the opportunity to assist with this process, and the goal is to include local data users to create boundaries that align with economic areas or other special geographic areas within the state that might be helpful for data users. So this map on the slide shows New York State PUMAs, which were created specifically with the goal to nest within the 10 local labor market regions, which are shown by the colors on the map. And this allows us to tabulate 1-year ACS data for our 10 labor market regions, which would not otherwise be possible from the standard geographies. So one major advantage of using PUMAs is that because they by definition contain 100,000 or more people, you'll have full coverage with ACS 1-year estimates. How can PUMAs be used? 2 main ways. First, the PUMAs populate 1-year ACS data for areas below the state level, and they offer complete coverage, which is not always true for county level data. And second, PUMAs can be searched using complex queries using the Microdata Access Tool, or MDAT, which Jolie will demonstrate later on for us in the live demo portion of the webinar. And that's very helpful for creating complex queries for crosstabs that might not be available from standard tables like race and ethnicity. So this map, just to illustrate the one-year ACS estimates, this map shows ACS data at the county level for New York State. And the various counties shown in purple are large enough in population to have data for one-year estimates, but those in gray do not have one-year estimates available because they didn't meet the 65,000 plus population requirement. So we're missing data for a fairly large chunk of the state if we go by the county level with one-year estimates. If we switch to the PUMA estimates, so tables on ACS data by PUMA, this map shows that one-year estimates for New York State are available for the whole state. So we have no more data counties grayed out. We have data coverage for the whole state. And just to note, New York City worked with the Census Bureau to coordinate PUMA boundaries to match with community board district boundaries. So New York City PUMAs can be used to tabulate data for community districts, which would not otherwise be a standard census geography. And as we mentioned earlier, the boundaries may change for PUMAs after a decennial census to reflect population shifts. So on the left, you'll see post-2010 census PUMA boundaries. So community districts 4 and 5 in New York City, Manhattan were combined as one PUMA, and community district 6 was separate, and this was post-2010. But over here on the right, post-2020, the new lines, community district 4 is now a single PUMA, and 5 and 6 are combined. So you'll notice that when you look at the PUMA names, if you pull the tables and you look at the names, it's also a good practice just to use the mapping functionality in data.census.gov just to make sure that you're clear on the boundaries of the PUMAs that you're looking at to be sure that you understand the area you're studying. So what are public use microdata? Aside from being a selectable geography in data.census.gov, we have another use for the PUMAs, and that's the public use microdata. So I will briefly discuss next what the microdata are, and then Jolie will demonstrate the usefulness of the data with an example. So public use microdata, they are sample files that enable data users to create custom estimates and tables that are not available through ACS pre-tabulated data products. There's no personally identifiable information in these files, and edits have been done to protect the confidentiality of respondents. The files are a set of records from individual people or housing units with disclosure protection enabled so that individuals and housing units cannot be identified. And there are ACS 1-year and 5-year PUMS files, which are available through either the Microdata Access Tool, MDAT, or you can also access them via an API, Application Programming Interface, or you can download through the FTP site. And when you download these files or when you tabulate them in MDAT, there are only selected geographic areas that you'll be able to identify in those PUMS files, including the nation, regions, divisions, states, and the PUMAs. And of these geographies, the PUMAs are the most detailed geographic areas available in those PUMS files. So, tabulated data versus microdata. I think it helps to visualize these to see what the difference is. So that table on the top is an example of tabulated data that you could download from data.census.gov. So that shows aggregated data into a table for a geography. So highlighted there, you'll see that in 2019 in Maryland, about 121,160 males worked in computer and mathematical occupations. So that's an example of pre-tabulated data. Now down on the bottom, if you needed to get more detail or you wanted to cross that information by different variables to do more of a custom query, the bottom section shows an example of what the microdata look like. They're individual level records that can be tabulated into user-defined categories. So that record highlighted there tells me that that male in Maryland is a web developer, and I can then cross those variables, however I like to tabulate them. Next up, our scenario, where Julie will take us into the live demo portion of the presentation and walk us through some scenarios using Puma geographies.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I'm going to now share my screen. And we're back to Jose. So now that you all have a very thorough understanding of what public use microdata are, we're going to look in our scenario at these two different queries. One, the first thing we're going to do is look for PUMAs in New York State that show population with experience in manufacturing at age 16 and over. And to do this, we are going to look at what I call the bedrock of census data, which is data.census.gov. And I believe as we're moving along, there are some links that are being posted, so you can feel free to go right to this tool and explore it yourself as I'm doing the live demo. This advanced search box is a key feature on data.census.gov, and it allows you to go into advanced search where you can filter by geography, year, topic, and survey. And this is just a nice slide of documentation which shows you where those advanced survey topics are. And we're going to switch into data.census.gov, which hopefully has magically appeared. And I am going to now go. Sorry, my cursor is not. Bear with me, everyone. There we go. Here's the cursor. And now we're going to advanced search. And the first thing we're going to do on the left is select the year for the most recent American Community Survey data. So we'll select 2022. And as we select that year, you can see that it populates up here in the filters. Next, because as Sarah mentioned, public use microdata area is not as often searched as these other ones, we're going to click on all geographies. Scroll down and click public use microdata area. In order to get into New York State, because we only want the public use microdata for New York State, I'm going to select New York. And there's this handy button up top, all PUMAs within New York, and this will load all of those PUMAs into my filter. The last thing I'm going to do is select my topic. So over here on the left, you can see these are all different topic areas. As you click on the topic area, there are a number of checkboxes, and you can dive deeper. We're going to choose employment and labor force status because we're looking for employment. And now on the lower right, we're going to click search. So when I click search, even with my advanced search, I'm getting 123 tables. You can see the tables are all here. And what I'm going to select, and I apologize, my cursor for some reason is going in and out. I'm going to select DPO3, which is one of those data-rich data profile tables, which Sarah had referred to. When I select DPO3, I want the 1 year estimates. And now I'm just pausing as my table populates. I'm going to click, really having a little trouble here. All right, I'm going back to my table. Here we go. For some reason, it didn't seem to like full screen. I apologize, everyone. But what I'm going to do is go back to my filters, select employment and industry. I'm actually going to redo this because, let's see. Oh, here are the tables. So here are my tables. Hopefully this will all work right nicely now. I'm going to remove the margin of error, make this a little smaller, and you can see this is a giant table with PUMAs for the entirety of New York State. When I scroll down, I can see manufacturing is one of the variables here. And if I wanted to get a better sense or narrow down more easily, what I can do is map. Now, just know that right now, there's a little glitch. Usually I would click map and all of the PUMAs would load. But right now, we're just going to click layer when we get to this gray map and select public use microdata area. And now you can see that my data loads nicely. But I'm looking for specifically for manufacturing. So I'm going to click this down arrow here. I want the number of people in manufacturing. You can see that the map dynamically reloads. And I'm going to click on the variable for manufacturing. So at this point, we wanted the two counties with the two PUMAs with the greatest concentration of population with experience in manufacturing. So I'm going to click on classes, which brings up a histogram. Now, I'm no statistician, but I can manipulate the histogram by dragging it. I'm just dragging this bar, and you can see how dynamically this is changing. The legend is changing on the right, as is the map. So I wanted the top two. So I just moved that bar until I got 2 in this top number. I'm going to change the colors and make the map a little deeper. And now it easily pops out to me, okay, which 2 PUMAs where Jose should focus his search for population with experience in manufacturing. So there's 10,209 in population in Erie County, that was Erie County South, PUMA. And we're also looking at Monroe County South. If I wanted to learn more about these 2 different PUMAs, I could click on View Profile. And this wonderful geographic profile will populate, which will give you a more detailed map. And also, it may take a couple minutes to load, but what you'll see is a whole bunch of statistics with links to different tables and surveys, which will also appear. But I want to go back to my map, so I'm just going to click the back button. Now, in addition to showing the 1 year, how PUMAs can be useful at the 1 year level, let's say I wanted to take a more deep look at smaller geographies in Monroe County. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to clear everything out by going to the upper left, click on Advanced Search. And now I want to look at census tracts in Monroe County. I select Census Tract, go back to New York. I'm going to search for Monroe by using this handy search. And now I can click, just like I clicked all PUMAs, I'm selecting all census tracts in Monroe County. I want to put my year as 2022. And let's look at the same table. We'll look at employment and labor force status, and check search. And here comes DPO3. So now it's going to populate in a different way with 5-year estimates. And you're thinking, Jolie, why are you going to those 5-year estimates? Well, I want to show you when we map the census tracts. So I'm going to go again to layer, as I've got my workaround here. Click on census tract, and now the census tracts will populate for Monroe County with our data. And what I can do here is I can drag the histogram, I can do all that, but I actually just want to put boundaries in. And what this allows me to do on the right is select a whole bunch of different boundaries. I'm going to select public use microdata area or PUMA boundaries. So now I can get a better sense of where I may be able to even further target maybe having an event or doing some advertising where you can see where that population, and hold on, because I want to make sure I highlight the number and select the correct variables and click on manufacturing. And even though I'm no artist, I always say I can make a beautiful map in data.census.gov. So this just gives me even more insight when I want to look at the PUMA overlay on a census tract. And now we're going to go back to the presentation where we'll look at the second part of our live demonstration. And this relates to Jose, who's also helping MEDEX to hire virtual customer service representatives who speak English and/or Spanish and are ages 18 to 49. So let's see which PUMAs they could target in New York State for this outreach. And just for the purpose of this exercise, we're going to look for one from Monroe County and one from Erie County. And we're going to use the Microdata Access Tool, or MDAT. So in order to get to that Microdata Access Tool, there are multiple ways. You could put Microdata Access Tool Census into your browser, and most likely it'll pop right up as the first search. You can also go to, and this is what it looks like on the right, you can go to this hyperlink, or you could go to if you're on data.census.gov and you just want to quickly get to MDAT, you can choose apps in the upper right corner and then select microdata. So we're actually going to do that right now. Whoops. So here we are. Here's our map. We want to clear this out. We're going to click at the upper left-hand corner and go to apps in the upper right, click microdata, and here's our microdata tool. When you land on the microdata tool, you can see that you can select different data sets. We are going to use, including ones in Puerto Rico, we are going to use the default, which is 1 year estimates, public use microdata sample, or PUMS. And while we could select back to 2004, what we're going to do is we're going to use 2022. So we're just going to select next. Now you can see there are different menu items. The first thing that we'll do here is to select our variables. Now, I know we want to look for language, so I'm going to search in labels for language. And you can see that multiple options surface. I could look at details. Let's say I wanted to look for one of 130 different languages. I could select this variable, but I'm happy to look at household variable. So I'm happy to look at household language. So I'm going to remove this. And when I selected household language, you can see up here in the data cart that there is one variable in the data cart. That's the household language variable. Now I'm selecting the age variable, which will bring up an orange band at the top of the screen, which is instructing me, hey, okay, you've selected this variable. It will be helpful to recode that variable. So you'll see that what we're going to do about that in just a minute. So to make sure that we get down to that age 18 to 49. So now that I've selected variables, I'm moving to geographies. And as Sarah mentioned, these are the geographies available in MDAT. We want public use microdata area. I'm going down to New York. And now I have to do a little clicking. So I'm going to click Monroe County and Erie County. And as I select these geographies, you can see them loading below. If I wanted to remove one, I can uncheck it or exit out. And this brings us to our data cart. So this is where we're going to do a little work on those variables. For household language, I'm going to uncheck Include in Universe and just check English and Spanish. This automatically saves. Next, we'll go to that age breakdown, which is a little more complicated. And I'm going to uncheck under 1 year and move this to 18, which is my minimum age. I could move it or I could change it right where the value is. And I'm going to create a custom group. In here, I'm going to move this down to 49. And I'm going to rename my group label to ages 18 to 49. And save this group. Now I want to edit this not elsewhere classified to be ages 50 and over, just in case I want to look at this variable too. And I'll save that group. At this point, we're now getting to the table layout. And while I could just see how the table lays out here, what I want to do is I'm going to move geographies up to columns. You see, I'm just drag and dropping, and take household language, put it in rows, and also put my age breakdown into rows. So what you can see here is how the table, where the variables will go, and we can still continue to play with this. And I'm going to select View Table. So at this point, I'm thinking, wow, there are a lot more people in Monroe and Erie counties. And I realize that what it defaults to is average of age for the values in the table cells, but I want to select count. So now my table has reloaded, and that looks a lot more friendly to me. And what we can see here is if I look through the data, I was looking for Spanish speakers in Monroe County. I could see that the two best options, the one in Monroe would be, Monroe County. I'd looked at this before. Monroe County East, Rochester City East, and then, sorry, I made it a little smaller so that we could see the Pumas in Buffalo. And for Spanish, we were looking at Buffalo City West. Oh, and here it is, 8,331 in that 18 to 49 age variable. Now, let's say I wanted to download or share this. I could click download or share. And I could copy the bookmark, or I could download it as a CSV file, etc. So that's my sharing of MDAT with you. And now let's go back to the presentation where we're going to just get to the right slide. Hang on one second. So for resources related to Pumas, there's extensive Puma documentation, which you can see on the right side of the slide. You can get to the microdata access tool. There are how-to materials like this video with Maria Valdesera, who I talked to this morning, about building a custom table using MDAT, just like we just did together. And there's a wonderful basics of using the microdata access tool class. That class meets at least once a month. You can sign up in advance. And it's a 3-hour class with a subject matter expert who can answer all of your questions about MDAT and show you how to manipulate the tool. Other resources that we wish to share with you include an About the State Data Center program link where you could find your own local state data center, and a link to TigerWeb, which I've shown on the right-hand side, here in New Hampshire and Vermont, which shows Pumas. You can find geographic shapefiles that show Puma boundaries. What's nice about TigerWeb is you can also compare geographies from one decennial census to another, which is pretty handy if you want to see how census tracts or Pumas have changed. And our census webinar wouldn't be complete without mentioning our data dissemination experts and further training. So I'm one of 30 throughout the country. You can contact the census.askdata at census.gov, which will be which will be shown in the chat. And you can see how to reach out to us with your questions or with requests for data training. You can also look up on census.gov/academy. You can look at data gems, which are 6 to usually 4 to 7 minute little short videos that really help to enhance your knowledge of census data. I just looked at a terrific one about margin of error that we produced. You can also get access to deeper courses and interact with our instructors via webinars. So we hope that you will be in touch with us. This is our contact information here. And we'll leave this slide up for a little bit. And I wanted to go to my favorite geographer, David Craker, who is currently has been moderating the chat along with our colleague Kira.
Hi,
Okay, David,
Jolie.
we're ready.
You're ready for stump the presenter?
Well, if there's a stump, Sarah or Jolie, you know, we revert right back to David.
Okay. All right. I'm working a little bit backwards here. I have one good question. I'm not sure. It's hard for me to follow along sometimes, but when you went into MDAT, somebody wanted to know how would a person know whether to use the housing unit weight or a different weight?
You know what? We'll send you a whole link with more documentation related to weighting. I can tell you that when I chose the person weight, you would read the results as there are blank people aged 18 to 49 who live in a household where only English is spoken at home, as opposed to the household weight where you would first talk about the household.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. All right, this is another stump the question, a little bit geography. So let's put our heads together. Somebody wanted to know when you were looking at the PUMA for upstate New York, which is I think around Rochester, and then you went to TRACT. Why would you not just go to TRACT to begin with?
Oh, that's an easy one. Why we wouldn't just go to TRACT is because the TRACT level data was the 5-year data. So it was a 60-month survey of data, as opposed to the 1-year PUMA data, which would give us more recent results.
Okay. All right. Okay, so I have another question, not quite a question. Maybe if you want to talk off the top of your head or show somebody. I know you've been working, to get to the map that you were showing people, you were using a workaround, right?
Yes.
But can we clarify or show people, I know it doesn't work, but what they would do normally? Sure.
So I'm going to go back to data.census.gov. And let's say I'm going to look up PUMAs or any other geography. Let's go to PUMAs, just because we're in the PUMA webinar. And let's say I chose all PUMAs for Alabama. And I'm choosing all PUMAs within Alabama. So we'll leave our state for a little bit, our home state. Click on 2022. And let's say I wanted to look at income and poverty. I could select, this is just another variable. I'm selecting income and poverty. And now I'm going to click search. So S1701, poverty status in the past 12 months, is something that I often will share with nonprofits and people looking for grant information. It's a nice deep table. I'm going to minimize the chevrons there. I'm getting rid of the margin of error so I can see a little bit of what's in this wonderful table. And then when I click on map, usually it would get me right to a beautiful map that's going to show me PUMAs. For today, so normally I wouldn't have to go through this step for the PUMAs to populate. Normally I click on map and my gorgeous map shows up just like this. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then you can manipulate the map from here. The only reason that I shared the workaround was because otherwise we would have just landed on the gray map and been sad not to see our real, the map that we wanted to see.
Okay. So it's good to know that when things aren't always working well in our system, that we ourselves at the Census Bureau have trouble with it too, right?
Yeah. And you can, you can certainly write into us. I found this glitch because I was focused on practicing for this webinar. But certainly we welcome hearing from our data users too.
Okay. And then another topic that came up, it was a question. And I think we just need to elaborate a little for people. Some people are using TigerWeb to go in and find pumas, and in TigerWeb, unfortunately, it only gives a number. The pumas used to only be numbered, right? And the last decennial, 2010, is when the Census Bureau decided to name the pumas, and those puma names sort of change a little bit depending on what the area is.
Okay.
But somebody did suggest that maybe it would be handy if the number was also in data.census.gov. So I'm just bring this out as a statement so that other people are aware of it, and maybe that's something we can suggest to the people who run data.census.gov.
I think it's definitely something that we could send back. I know that it was supposed to be, I'm sure, easier to identify by being able to see the name and somewhat of a description of the geography. But we certainly could give that feedback. We make suggestions, and often they are incorporated, especially when we hear from multiple members of the public how it would be easier to use our tools.
Okay, all right. I don't think there are any other questions. Let me just look real. Oh, okay.
I think there was something about a crosswalk, David. Do you or
Yes,
Sarah want to explain what a crosswalk is?
Yeah, are you talking from the numbers to the names?
Just if you were looking for a crosswalk for tracks or pumas. I just saw a question pop up, which maybe.
They're saying Puma. Is there a crosswalk from Puma to county? I don't know where that would be.
There are Puma equivalency files. It's a text file that's out on the reference page, I believe. And it'll list the Puma name, and then under the name there are rows for each included geography, whether it's a census tract or a county.
Okay, and so we're talking on the Census Bureau website, right?
Yep.
The geography page. There are some equivalency files. Okay.
Yep. Puma equivalency files.
All right, just so we know that that's there. There's a lot of things there. Sometimes it's written as, like you said, equivalency files. Sometimes I will look up the word gazetteer as well and get some information. Yep. So I had one other question. Are there
I think we'll take one more, and then we can hand it over to our moderator to close.
Okay, I have this question. I'll read it. I haven't. So are there table download options that include geographic attributes along with non-geographic attributes? Okay. If so, what formats are available? Esri shapefile, GeoJSON, or type of geodatabase? So I'm going to say geodatabase would be the best thing for people to download. I don't know. Did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Sarah, any thoughts on this one?
I think I would agree that a geodatabase is probably the best way to go. I assume you're just going to take the Puma data and map it after that in like your own mapping software. So a geodatabase would probably be the best bet.
Okay, so I'll just add my geographer 2 cents here. Is the geodatabases are geographic information, demographic information, and some geographic information that's attached or in the same file as shapefiles, but they do come out later. It takes a while for our geography division to put those together and have them ready and up there on the website. So if you are, you love pumas and you need that information really quickly, you may opt to go to data.census.gov to get the data and just join it yourself. But ultimately, it will be up there in the geodatabase. Yes. I think that's it for the questions.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. Please remember to take a look at census.gov/academy and feel free to reach out to me, Sarah, or to census.askdata@census.gov to be in touch. We hope to be in touch with you soon and hearing from you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jolie and Sarah, for a super presentation. And David and Kira, thank you so much for moderating for us today. Before we conclude, I'd like to thank everyone who played a role in today's webinar. We thank you, our audience, for spending your time with us this afternoon. We're very interested in hearing from you on how we are doing. Please take a moment to fill out the evaluation that will appear when you go to exit the webinar. Look out for the recording, presentation, and related materials from the webinar on the Census Academy by visiting census.gov/academy within 30 business days. Please check out the Census Academy for additional training resources and to register for any upcoming webinars. That brings us to a close. We thank you again for joining us today and hope you have a great afternoon.
This concludes today's webinar. Thank you for your participation. You may disconnect at this time.